Yeah. Falling into love hurts just as much as falling out of it. But I'll scrape my knees and scar my shins. I hope you never doubted that I'm down for you. Wanna hit the town, make it loud, be a clown for you. Or maybe we could be a Romeo and Juliet, except without the age difference, and we can forget the death. Cause this is love at first sight, there's no doubt in my mind. And darling, forget about the time, cause you're mine. And I'll spend every second chilling with you. Like this, that vintage Nickelodeon innocence love. Innocence the type of if we fight, let's chill and make up. You're one in a million pay stubs, but to me you're like a lottery. There's a lot of fish in the sea, but you're a catch that's so startling. Baby, I know that there's a lot to do, it's awful too. And then your past, there's a lot to chew. I'll buckle up, like your burden's a weight to carry, but it lessens at a steady rate. And I'll be by your side, like your phone pocketed on second dates.
What's up YouTube, Orius here, and again welcome to the Boomer's Guide to Fortnite. In the second installment we're going to optimize your settings for the whole damn game. This is something I always recommend doing when approaching a new game, especially if it's a competitive one. So let's get started with a shout out to two special people this week. This one goes out to the legend LobsterDust and our friend Day and Night, both amazing individuals from our Fortnite Friday group. Lobster's been the ultimate hype man this week, and Day has always been a constant presence in our Fortnite adventures since the very beginning. So their socials can be found in the description below. Please show them some love. Now you can also find information down in the description on our weekly late night Fortnite gatherings on NA West. Feel free to come by and school us. Hopefully if you're watching this though, you're as terribly old and decrepit as we are. So there's a lot to go over with settings, so I'll try to keep it brief. The goal will be only the important things. If I skip over a setting, just assume it's likely situational or meant to stay as default. So let's get into it. Now before we jump into the graphic settings, it's important to know about one thing you can adjust, and that's the rendering mode. This is pretty unique to Fortnite, and it allows you to change away from the default DirectX 11 and either try out DirectX 12, which is currently in beta, or performance mode, which is very different. To briefly summarize, DirectX 11 is the default these days. DirectX 12 is currently in beta, so it does give a performance and quality boost potentially, but it has some stability issues, and performance mode is a little unique to Fortnite. This is meant for either low-end machines or if you just want to maximize your FPS and input delay across the board. I highly recommend performance mode. When it comes to your display settings, this is going to be pretty obvious. Just use whatever's best for your PC. Make sure you're keeping things on full screen. When it comes to your frames per second, the most common misconception is that having 300 frames set here is going to give you a huge advantage. That's not necessarily true. You need to make sure this is synced to your monitor's refresh rate. If you have a 60 Hz monitor, you're going to keep this at 60. Of course, we have brightness, contrast, colorblind mode. If you are a boomer, you are going to want to set these accordingly. Probably keep things bright, and feel free to mess around with the colorblind modes even if you're not colorblind. This might help you see certain things given the crazy color scheme that Fortnite tends to use. Now the individual graphics quality settings you're going to see here are going to vary based on what rendering mode you chose. Mess around with these to figure out what's best for your system. Things like shadows might actually give you an advantage to turn off, because many players play with them off and can see you a lot better. From an advanced perspective, keep your VSync off. Unless you've got an awful monitor, you're playing on a TV and you see screen tearing, keep your VSync off. Even NVIDIA cards these days have something new called G-Sync enabled on their cards in your NVIDIA settings. Make sure you play with this off as well. Fortnite is very, very input dependent, and the less input delay you have, the better. Now next we're going to come to the general settings tab. You're going to leave most of this as default, but there's a few to note here. Auto open doors, I recommend turning on. Sometimes when you're doing wall edits to get out, you're going to end up opening a door by accident, and you'll at least just run through it immediately so it won't slow you down. Auto pick up weapons, it might be useful for you as well. I keep this on because sometimes in those 50-50 situations in a squads match when you're landing and you have to fight over a gun, this will pick up that gun a little bit faster. Preferred item slots were recently added to the game. They're fantastic. Make sure you look through these settings as they allow you to choose default places for your weapons to appear in your inventory when you pick them up. Now when it comes to the building options in this tab, we're going to use disable pre-edit option. We're going to leave that on. That stops you from accidentally opening a window or something like that in your edits. That can be bad at times. Turbo building we're going to of course have on. If you have this off, there is something wrong with you. Confirm edit on release, as we've already talked about, is something you usually want to leave on for a new player. Makes it easier to confirm those edits, but there are several advanced options where we would leave this off. The same goes for the disabling of the pre-edit option, but we'll get to that. The last one is tap to search interact. It's a little further down under extra. I recommend turning this on too. That way when you're opening a chest, you don't have to hold the button down. You just tap it and keep your cursor on it, and it does it for you. Next we come to the third tab, which is the HUD tab. This is mostly going to stay as default, of course, but you're going to want to turn your HUD scale up. You're blind, I'm sure, so turn it up. The Fortnite HUD is very optimized, so don't worry, it's not going to get in your way. Latency debug stats and net debug stats I recommend turning on, of course, so that you can blame these things when you die. Alright, so next we arrive at sensitivity. Now this topic continues to have evolving philosophies across all competitive games, so let's just break it down kind of simply here. First, generally, your goal in Fortnite is to be able to easily perform a 360 and box yourself. So as long as you can do this, the numbers themselves don't matter. Folks with insanely high and insanely low sensitivities have qualified for competitive tournaments in all esports since the very beginning, so there's no right answer. Just choose a sensitivity that feels comfortable with you, and once you've locked it in, give your brain time to develop the muscle memory necessary to trust your reflexes as you improve on the other aspects of the game. Now, it may seem at first glance that my sensitivity is insanely low, but that's actually not true. I play at 2400 DPI on my mouse, so actually I'm on the higher side of the sensitivity spectrum. So the next tab is controller sensitivity settings. I'm not a controller player. Everything I know I've read online. Just Google it. This is none of my business. Next we come to the audio settings, of course. Your level should probably be way up there so you can actually hear people in the game. Keep your quality high. Turn the 3D headphones off. We tried this for a while and it just gives you an even worse perception of who's above you and who's below you, which is already a problem. When it comes to visualized sound effects, this is up to you. Turning this on makes it to where your audio comes in as mono, so you can't tell left from right, but it gives you a visual effect on the screen, which lets you see when things are left, right, above you, below you, and that's chests, people, gunfire, just about anything. It's really useful if you're just trying to relax, you don't want to put on headphones, but you still want to be able to tell your left from right when you're playing through speakers. Your voice chat, of course you'll want to leave that on so you can yell at kids in your squads matches. They've got to learn somehow. And last, there are additional options for content creators down near the bottom. This is very important if you're streaming, as you can mute the licensed audio. Anything that might come in that might get you a DMCA strike, you can make sure that gets muted. So now we arrive at keybinds. There's probably an entire video I could produce on keybinds. They're just as varied as sensitivity among the competitive scene, but there's a general philosophy to follow. Ideally, your builds should never impact your WASD movement. Now that seems like a simple thing, but it isn't. I'll let you in on a crushing secret though. I do not have optimal keybinds.
You're a phony! Hey, this guy's a great big phony!
See, I started playing in the early Fortnite days and I got used to my own set of keybinds before the game evolved into its current state. I'm too old to change, but you, if you're new at this, you can learn from my mistakes. Now if you're going for perfect settings on your building keybinds, you'd want 2 on your mouse buttons and 2 on your keyboard buttons. This allows you to sequence between them very quickly and doesn't affect your movement as much. We can apply the same logic to the binds you use to switch weapons, but as long as you can swap from a shotgun to an AR very quickly and you learn that sequence, your builds should be your first priority. And as we near the end of our journey, we reach the account and privacy tab. Just a few things here, primarily for you big content creators and live streamers out there. Fortnite does include both an anonymous mode and the ability to hide other players' names, just in case the clout farmers or stream snipers come knocking. They've included a hidden matchmaking delay as well, if it gets really terrible, but there's really only so much you can do. Last thing on this tab, maybe spend a few moments and click on the damn credits tab. Hundreds of people dedicated thousands of hours to bring you a complex, beautiful game that you can play for free that updates like every damn week, so maybe just don't be so ungrateful and like say thanks for like 2 minutes. You know, like damn. The last thing I'll talk about is outside the game, but it is one of the primary aspects of the current meta. It's referred to as double movement. Now these are programs that you can download that emulate controller movement, which allows you to run sideways instead of kind of doing that weird walking shuffle. This is something that only controller players were able to do until very recently and has been approved by Epic Games. Now this is probably coming to the game very soon, probably in the next season or at the very least in Chapter 3, a couple seasons from now. Personally, I use a program called Keys2X, and I'll show my settings down in the description and here on the screen, but if you prefer to just wait on this, that's perfectly alright. This is just something additional that you can do to give yourself a little bit of an advantage and let you run directly sideways like controller players do. Alright, that about does it for the overall settings. Now these might be standard nonsense, but success in Fortnite is often determined by the micro game. The tiniest optimizations could mean the difference between winning and losing. Again, a big thanks to the Fortnite Friday crew. to my lovely lady Lily, and to all of you out there on YouTube. Stay tuned for the next episode where we delve into our in-depth analysis into build fights. You folks are legends. See you next time.